Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you are viewing this podcast. This podcast we call Race, Culture, and the Church. Race, Culture, and the Church. And again, as I don't assume that everybody watches every podcast, so I go out of my way to explain what that actually means. And simply put, think of it as a Venn diagram with three circles, and one being race, one being culture, one being the church. And our goal is to intersect in at least two of the areas. If we hit all three, that is the equivalent of a lottery winner. But our goal is to hit at least two. And so I invite you to look at our whole series. It goes back to about a week after the murder of George Floyd. And there's quite a few podcasts, and I really believe you'll be helped and blessed by that. But today I am pleased, absolutely pleased, to welcome into this space Sonya Bradley, the Chief of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Visit Sacramento. Welcome, Sonya.
Thanks, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you are here. This is we had planned this back in November, I think, and it's taken this long. I equate that to not a lack of your desire to come, but you're a busy woman. You are busy.
Well, yes, and the holidays jumped in there too. So, but You're right. Yeah, I've been busy.
What are the before I get into? Let me just go into that. I was gonna say what's creating what's filling up Sonya's daily planner, your schedule. But let me just introduce you formally. And as I like to say, if there's anything incorrect here, you can blame it on Visit Sacramento because I took it straight from there. So they will have to update their information. Okay. You've been in the position DEI since April of 2021, and you transitioned into that position from serving as Chief Marketing Officer. So that's wonderful. And it said this position was created specifically to address the organization's commitment to taking actions and creating change when it comes to DEI within Visit Sacramento, the tourism industry in the Sacramento region and beyond. You shared that you've been with Visit Sacramento for 20 years and 25 plus years in the business, a Correct. BA from Pepperdine, Masters of Science you're a Spartan from San Jose State University.
Yep.
You're the second Spartan. I'm trying to think who we had. Oh, it was Captain Stephen Moore, the area commander for SAC PD. He is also a San Jose State grad. So there's something going on down at the south on that end of the bay.
Oh, yeah.
What brought you to Sacramento?
I was working in the industry at the San Jose Convention and Visitors Bureau. And long story short, I had a boss who came to the Sacramento or Visit Sacramento, and he was here about 6 months and said, "There's a position open. You should try for it and come up." And next thing you knew, I was up here. I got the position. I remember visiting during Jazz Festival weekend. I'll never forget. And it was I think it was also the last time, I think the Kings were playing the Lakers. I remember that because we were walking around watching the game. And wow. I'm just from the Bay Area, so I hadn't quite hooked on to the Kings, all the fandom here. I am now, for sure. And next thing you know, I was hooked to Sacramento.
So, from a 30,000-foot level, the biggest difference between Sacramento and, say, the Bay Area is?
I would say for someone like me, I feel like it's, I don't know, it's kind of easier to get to know people here, I believe. I feel in some areas there's certainly a great sense of community here, and that's not to knock that there isn't in the Bay Area, but I just feel it a little bit more here. I don't know, it's easier to get around. I was in the Bay Area not too long ago. Of course, this was, before all the rain, and even the streets are better here. So
thank you, Sacramento Public Works.
yes, thank you. At the end of the day, it was the people. The people seem very genuine here, and I've just it's as I like to say, it grows on you. And here I am.
Can you be undercover through the mall, or are you pointed out there? Oh, I know you, Sonya.
Here in Sacramento?
Here in Sacramento.
Interestingly enough, and more people, I've been here long enough where people do see me and know me, or like, I know you from, or something like that. So no, I do not have celebrity status, but I have been recognized on occasion, and I can tell you a funny story if you have time.
Absolutely.
I had relatives visiting, my cousin and his wife and 2 young kids, and I would joke to say, people know me in town, and because he was kind of like, what can you do in Sacramento? Why would I come? Which was, an insult since the job I do. And I kid you not, I had just taken them on a tour of the Capitol, which they loved, and we were walking back to the Hyatt Hotel, and I look across the street, and I see Mayor Steinberg coming across the street. And he's actually on the phone. He's all by himself. And he comes across the street. He tells the person he's talking to, I got to go. I got to go say hi to someone. He comes up. He gives me a big hug. He says hi, and he introduces himself to my family. He talks to the kids, and they take a photo together.
Wow.
And at that moment, I turned to my family. I said, told you I was a big deal here in Sacramento.
I love it. That's a story you absolutely need to keep in your quiver. Just pull that out.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful story.
Yeah.
No, I find that with Sacramento, the metropolitan area is what, 2 million?
Yeah,
And it is the smallest, biggest city that I think I know.
I think that's a really good way to say it.
It is big, but it is small, and it's tough. And you're not a celebrity. I'm even less of a celebrity. Trust me. But I find it hard. The rare occasions when I do go to the mall, Pastor Meeks, or I know you. You're one of those Meeks boys, right? And it's like, yeah. It's a small town, which has its positives, and which it has its negatives too when it comes to trying to create a business base with which to do big stuff. I think that was, definitely don't want to go down that path. Maybe not just yet, with bringing professional soccer to the area. Well, you need big corporate sponsorships. Yeah. Well, a lot of eggs are in the Sacramento Kings basket right now, the coop isn't that big. So that aside, I'm just curious as to your take on the recent story that came out about Sacramento being the number 1 place, the most desirable place to live in California. Did that surprise you? Be honest now.
No, actually, it really did not. I mean, I think about how I was
more than San Diego.
Granted, San Diego's great. We cannot.
San Diego's a beautiful town.
San Diego's great, but I think when you put all the pieces together, Sacramento is a desirable place. Because I always say it kind of sneaks up on you, Sacramento. Like I mean, honestly, I did not figure myself being here as long, but I hear that from a lot of people. Next thing you know, you're wearing the purple and white. You're a Kings fan. You're going to Sacramento Republic. Yeah. You're doing all the things here. And then, I mean, also when when you start talking about the food here, really gets hard to leave. Really gets hard to leave. So I'm 100% biased. So let's put that out there.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. I think there's just a lot of pieces when it comes together. It is a very desirable place to live, and I'm sure you can't talk to anyone who can poke holes in that. But I think for a lot of us, it's a good place to be.
You mentioned food. You mentioned, Elizabeth, let me just stop there. I don't want to guess at other things you mentioned. You mentioned food for sure. What are the things that really make Sacramento, Sacramento?
It's kind of like, that's a good question because you hear a lot of people talk about brand, and I still have that marketing hat on almost every day. And you talk about brand, you don't create your brand. The brand is really the sum of all the parts of a destination like Sacramento. And so when we went through an exercise about 2 years ago about who we are, we came away knowing that we're very welcome. We believe we're a very welcoming destination. We also, we don't take ourselves that seriously, but we're very sort of become fiercely protective of who we are. The people you meet are giving of their time. They welcome people. When we talk about the food scene, you know as probably well as anyone. If I go into a restaurant, one of my favorites is Camden Spit and Larder. I've met, I know the chef there, and he will come out and he'll talk to you. You can see him at the farmer's market. And I love that chef because he always asks about my mother.
Oh, wow.
They live in the Bay Area. We went there. She's met him like 2 or 3 times. He always asks about my mother. And I just think you get that closeness and friendliness without the pretension. And I think that's what makes it, again, back to being desirable. But when we went through that study, we're just like, you know what? We're just, there's a word we use now, it's escaping my mind, but it's a very, just kind of an easy place to be. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate what we have. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to be, I think Sacramento's come a long way. We're not trying to be Austin. We're not trying to be Portland. Mm-hmm. We're Sacramento, and I believe we've begun to embrace that the last 10, 15 years.
I like how you put that. And I've said that about City Church, even. We don't pretend to be anybody else.
Yeah.
This is who we are. You'll embrace us or not. And Sacramento is just that. I joke, but don't joke. I wasn't born in California. I was born in Bakersfield. And so my parents came to Sacramento in 1967. And I am eternally thankful that they had the foresight to do that, the call to come and move to the Sacramento area back in the later 60s. Bakersfield is nice. It's not Sacramento. I've lived in Fresno. It's not Sacramento. Sacramento, it really is its own thing, with its own set of issues and challenges.
Absolutely.
So you're in the role now as diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. What does that mean? More than just a dictionary definition, but what does that mean for Visit Sacramento?
For us, when we started talking about this back in 2020 and became a position in 21, it was a couple things. It was looking at, and I'll just kind of start working my way out. It was an internal conversation, like, what are we doing as an organization, and how can we help the industry honestly become truly equitable, diverse, and more inclusive? I think like a lot of industries, they were questioning themselves. From a pragmatic standpoint is how about what can we do even to drive visitors to Sacramento who are looking for diverse cultures, a different story, something about this region that will be of interest to them, maybe based on what their cultural background might be. How can we really expand the Sacramento story to include more people and include more businesses, vendors, if you will, to be part of the visitor economy here in Sacramento. So, we looked at programs and practices, and we actually have 3 pillars. We programs and practices, community and industry engagement, and then education and skill development. So of those 3, and this was, created over time, but of those 3, we looked at the end of the day, our job is to drive visitors into this Sacramento area, into Sacramento hotels. but being out in the community helps really shape who some of those visitors might be. So we're out talking to the community. We're out honestly learning more about our community. As a resident, I knew know of some of the really neat places to go to. But how can we share? How can, small businesses perhaps become a part of that? How can they benefit from visitors to Sacramento? So, because to me, we could talk about DEI, but y'all, you got to put your money where your mouth is, right. And that's what we believe.
So, what is the answer? How do you? How does DEI with Visit Sacramento translate to TNR barbecue, fixins? I'm trying to draw, if not a bright red line connecting dots. Well, let me even try and frame it even more. Oak Park, where we're at right now, at least a couple of years ago, was identified as Sacramento is one of the most, if not the most diverse community in the country, racially, ethnically, probably even socially speaking. And Oak Park is the center of the target, if you will. It's very diverse, but dare I say, there are clear signs of bifurcation or demarcation, if you will.
Yeah.
So you can have diversity, but probably not equity. So how do you? I'm not asking Sonya Bradley to solve Sacramento social issues, but how do you, in your role as DEI coordinator, president for Visit Sacramento, how do you navigate that inclusion with women-owned, minority-owned businesses?
Good question. One of the areas that I'm particularly interested in is, can we help create tourism corridors? So I look at areas specifically like Oak Park. I've looked at areas on Stockton Boulevard, Little Saigon, the North Gate area, because I think they offer something very authentic, very unique, and part of basically part of the fabric of the Sacramento. And when we look at the small businesses, women-owned, minority-owned, and so those tourist corridors become very important. And so it's incumbent upon Visit Sacramento, and my role is to go out and honestly get to really know those areas, know who, the person that everyone talks about, understanding what's there, and then really helping them, or at least getting them to be part of a conversation. We want to help make this a visitor destination. And that doesn't mean, you're going to have visitors, overrunning stores and things like that. But how do we let us talk about you, or again, tell that story about Oak Park to the visitors who are looking at Sacramento as a destination. And then that allows us to highlight women-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. When we're talking about, just a whole 40 acres complex, there's a story there to be told about the bookstore and fixins and the barbershop and so forth. So when someone trusts us to be able to do that, that's when we go in and we look for something that's just not about, there's 4 restaurants on the street, go pick one and go. We want to talk about why you want to have great soul food at Fixins, or you want to check out Slim and Husky's, and not, yes, the pizza's awesome, but it's more than that. And so that's how Visit Sacramento operates. We have partners essentially, and throughout the year, we are a content generating machine. So throughout the year, we are looking for those stories, quite frankly, that we can tell a broader story. I always talk about the broader story of Sacramento. If you want to talk about the Hispanic culture here in Sacramento, it's a great history of the Hispanic culture here. Some of that could be wrapped up into the Northgate area because there's some really great Latin American foods there, and they're hidden. So that's where we come in. That's how we can tell that story. Yeah, there's definitely some bifurcation areas. I can't solve that, but the ones that are here and are staying or working hard, let us help raise you up to a certain presence so that we can get visitors to you, so you can stay in business. So maybe someone else will come in who looks like you and also think about opening a business.
It's tough to, not that I shy away from tough questions, but you've been in your role since all of April of 2021. Do you have any success stories you can point back to and say, oh, this is something I am very proud to have had a small or big hand in?
Yeah, we featured like Little Saigon in our visitor's guide, which we print several thousand. They go all over the country and all over the world upon request or in hotels. So that's one part of it. But, I talk about the Farm to Fork. I'll talk about the Farm to Fork Festival, which is held in September, which we call sort of Farm to Fork Month, where there's the Legends of Wine, the Farm to Fork Festival, and then the Tower Bridge Dinner. So what I've been able to do is, it's funny, we've had conversations around this, but at some point you either do something about it or you move on. Or you move on. But we've had conversations about how do we diversify the Farm to Fork Festival? How do we make the Tower Bridge seem like it is more inclusive? How do we get more people of color or marginalized communities to just go to the festival, check it out, because the belief is, and I've heard this from people, said, kind of feels like it's not for me, the festival.
I didn't say that, but I could have said that.
You wouldn't have been the first.
But if you had a hand in it, thank you. But thank you, Visit Sacramento anyway. The array of chefs that you had this last go round made me feel very proud.
And you know what? It also made me feel very proud. I was over the moon to see a lot of those chefs be on the bridge dinner, be recognized for their talent. I tell people, particularly chefs, right? If you own a restaurant, you're typically more well-known. A lot of chefs of colors don't have a brick and mortar.
Correct.
It's very expensive to run a restaurant. But they may cater. They may work at other places that you may not know of. But they're really talented. Correct. And that's what happens that's what we're trying to affect, is how do we show that talent that's out there that may not be front and center.
Tickets are like hen's teeth. So not that. Although I know Sonya Bradley, so I know I've got the end for 2023.
You do know me. That's all I'm going to say.
That doesn't equate into a ticket. I understand. Speaking of color and speaking of diversity, I think the last time we actually spoke face to face was at the Color of Music Festival, which we were fortunate enough to host a couple of evening events here at City Church. Give me just, I've got so many questions I can, but let me give you an underhanded softball to hit. And what was your take on the Color of Music, the Visit Sacramento's participation, all of that?
I love Color of Music Festival. I often joke, it's also trying to kill me because it's so much work.
I can only imagine, seriously.
I love it because of its uniqueness. And first to admit, what I know about classical music can feel like a thimble, so I really admit. But the whole learning process has been very good. Our participation began because when we started talking about what can we do as an organization, first and foremost, how do we drive visitors to Sacramento? So there's a couple concerts that get hosted here or that are happening here in Sacramento. Drive fills every hotel room from here to Roseville. But we wanted to, and this is part of the DEI conversation. What else can we have here in Sacramento that might speak to a different audience or a different market? And Color of Music Festival actually was brought to us in 2019. Everything was in 2019. 2020 was going to be the great year. So long story short, we decided let's pursue this more. And we invested in it, became a sponsor for 2 years now, as well as the city of Sacramento to bring that here And like you said, you've hosted events here at City Church. The finale is always at Memorial Auditorium, or has been for the last 2 years. And right now, it's where we want it to grow. I mean, I have a vision for Color of Music Festival. I want this to be the single largest Black classical musician festival in the U.S. I want to be able to drive visitors from all over the country, all over the world, to come hear these amazing musicians. And I want it to be something that the music itself, speaks for itself. But I want young people to come see it, to see what's possible, to see that there are people who look like them that they're playing concert halls all over the world. And you too can do that. And I won't get into a conversation, a discussion about, about music and art not being in the schools as much as it used to be, maybe when we were growing up. But if we can bring that to Sacramento and directly into the communities, imagine a school session where you've got four or five, 10 Black classical musicians coming to teach the kids about what's happening and why, what classical music is about, learning about Black composers. So admittedly, there's a special place in my heart for Color of Music Festival. But from a visitation point of view, I just think it has the ability to just grow and be bigger, because it's not happening anywhere else that I know of.
When you were speaking, I was thinking of drawing a parallel, having, say, Misty Copeland come into a classroom and talk about ballet. It's like folks, their jaws would hit the floor. Well, this is kind of like that.
It's the exact same thing.
So what will it take? And I'm not just saying Visit Sacramento. That is not a lift that you're either the organization is capable of doing, nor should it.
Correct.
What will it take?
Community support.
What does that mean?
That means it means really when the tickets go on sale, buy the tickets.
But
in
speaking with Lee Pringle, ticket sales are a small part of the revenue stream.
Yeah.
That it's bigger than that.
It is. Honestly, I should have said number one is funding. It needs a significant amount of funding to be able to put on such an event. We need big sponsors to be able to do that, and we were able to get some last year, but we need sustained funding for that to be able to happen. When I say community support, I mean I need the community to embrace this as theirs, as particularly around African American communities. Like this is ours. We're building this. And so you're going, but you're talking about it. I mean, again, I go back to marketing. Word of mouth is always still the number one way that people hear and take an action.
Absolutely.
When it comes to things. So we need them to do that. And we need to, everyone you talk to about this event no one ever has a bad thing to say. They love it. I love seeing the kids talk to the musicians. So the feel good is there. But at the end of the day, brass tacks is we need sustained funding. We need the folks who are in the DEI world, who are in corporate giving, to see this as bigger than just a music festival, but to see that there's even an education component to this, to see that there's a community engagement component to this, to see that it just raises the profile of Sacramento, and then we even become more desirable to live in.
I couldn't agree more. If I could add, the investment you make now, it really it increases not only the value of the community, but the community being comprised of people and generations, it increases the value of the resource, the human resource too. And so it becomes, because we have such a short microwave length of attention, it becomes hard for folks that are in charge of bottom lines at any corporation. Well, yeah, I hear you. This is going to show benefit 20 years from now. Well, I won't be in this role, but I'm being held accountable for things right now. For folks to take on that generational perspective, that takes a special person like a Sonya Bradley.
Well, I was talking to someone earlier about this too. I mean, exposure to the African American audience. If you are serious as an organization
That's
or
a big
corporation,
That's a big if.
It's a big if. But if you're going to talk about that you truly want to reach the African American community, you want to make a difference, is this going to just suddenly overnight, we're going to change the conversation around race? No. But if you want access and you want people, I believe, to see you in a positive light, because that's, whatever your organization or company is, it's a way to reach that, the African American community in particular. And the Color Music Festival, it's music. So, we obviously we want as many people as we can get there. But this is specifically, targeted right now to African Americans because we know that we're going in with our heart, so to speak, on this. But I just think it's an awesome way for any company to see a link to their audience, their market, the people who might already be buying their product or service. And I think when you can demonstrate that to the audience, you get the return. So maybe it's generational, but if you're investing now and the next generation has gotten to know you, it's like the family who's owned nothing but Ford cars all these years.
Correct.
You say, well, I'm not going to be like my dad who bought a Ford, but guess what? You're probably going to buy a Ford.
Chances are.
Yeah.
Chances are. Yeah. So where are we going? Where are we? And I say we, Sacramento, we Oak Park, we African American community, Hispanic community. I mean, just where are we going with respect to Visit Sacramento? Where are we going? Which direction are we headed off to, and why are we going there?
I believe we are going to a place where, I'm going to steal a line from my boss, who said, it's raining and we have an umbrella. Let's make a bigger umbrella. We can fit, you know what? The umbrella is big. We can fit more people on the umbrella. We can make the table bigger. We can add more chairs. And I believe that's where I see us going. At least that's where I want us to go. Not trying to take anything away from anyone. Having 4 or 5 black chefs on the Tower Bridge dinner didn't hurt anyone.
It was wonderful.
It was so good. Sorry, I don't mean to brag.
It was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
Yeah, and so it was just an expansion of the table. That's all it is. So if I can get. I love going down Stockton Boulevard. If I can get them as part of this visitor economy, and my favorite bakery down there gets a few more visitors, and they get some buses coming in, I just made the table bigger. That's it.
I like bakeries. What's your favorite bakery?
It's what's it called? It's right there on Stockton Boulevard.
Stockton and Fruit Ridge.
I don't think it's that far. Oh, I knew you were going to do that to me. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's a big one. Like everyone will know.
Well, I know one thing. Drew Escobar. He's going to put a little third line under as we're speaking right now, and he's going to list the bakery. So
okay, I'll get you that name.
Not a problem.
I'll get you that name.
I've run out of time. I've already gotten my 5-minute high sign. Where do you see communities of faith fitting in Visit Sacramento?
It's actually a really good question because I don't know that people fully understand everything we do because we talk about the events, but our core business is actually driving in getting meetings and conventions to come here. Sacramento is actually one of the best destinations for faith-based conferences and groups. And so, in fact, one of our sales managers is on her way to a faith-based conference right now.
Wow.
And we work with these groups, and they, after learning about how many hotels and how big the conference center is, they want to know where are the churches, where can we go worship? Is there someone who come and speak to us about, you pick a topic.
Mm-hmm.
You mean what you're doing in your church, or what, maybe lead a prayer session or something. Mm-hmm. And this just goes back to when you're marketing a destination, there's so many different pieces, things sometimes you don't even think about. But faith-based groups are really important to Sacramento for the business that they can actually bring here. And I've had the opportunity to work with like the Interfaith Council on a couple things. We've actually hosted a group here. And so from that perspective, that's probably top of the list. But just being able to share with visitors places to go if they want to worship, or if they want to, if they need a Sunday prayer. So it's incredibly important actually for visitors. So
It's good to know. Definitely keep us abreast of that, and anything that we can do to spread that information out to a broader communities of faith. Just let us know. Kind of as I would say a wrap up, but for 2023, anything we should know about? Anything that's a secret that we promise not to tell anybody except those that are watching this podcast?
Okay. I want the listening audience not to share this.
Yeah, exactly.
Cultural tourism, that's a big one on our list. It's we're getting together information and things that we can share to locals and to visitors about the cultural amenities here in Sacramento, but it's part of a full story. So if you are Asian American and you want to know about Asian American history, we're working on actually cultural tourism itineraries to be able to share that with incoming visitors. We're just kind of got the basics started, but we want to share that on our platforms. And if you talk about vision 5 or 10 years from now, we've got people ready to go to maybe even, be set up to offer daily tours or something. So cultural tourism is high on our list for 2023.
I'm wondering along those lines, having if Visit Sacramento would even be of the mind to, when you say, and maybe this is what you're talking about, cultural tourism, to the history of Sacramento. It goes back to Sutter, 1840s, and the whole arc of how the city was developed, the whole destruction of the West End, all of that. I worked in the Bay Area for 7 years, and like yourself, my peers would always poo-poo Sacramento. Oh, that hick town, that whatever. It's like, you know what? You stay in the Bay Area. This is fine. Right. Sacramento's where you raise a family. And Sacramento is a place that has a rich history, not always pretty, but very rich. To have a kind of like how they have in San Francisco, that little 49-mile, with a little, was it seagulls or pelicans or whatever, with a little sign, to have something similar to that in Sacramento, to actually have a curated drive-through. Well, it looks like a bank right now, but this is the spot where X, Y, and Z was.
100%. That ultimately is the goal, is to build something that's self-propel. You can walk it, drive it, et cetera, or you can have someone actually give the tour. And we actually do have, there's a tour operator here that can do that. It just takes some coordination to get that done, but that's exactly what we're working on. And to your point about history not always being pretty, that's what people want. I mean, if you think about, and I've never done it, but I suspect when you go on the civil rights tour trail down in the South, they're going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Correct.
And I think we know now that's what we need to do.
And I'll wrap up with this. I had the occasion to have a family reunion in Tulsa this past year, and so obviously the Black Wall Street and the history there. I don't see it as it being crass to showcase bad. It's really making aware this is the history of our country, and deal with the history. Don't airbrush it. Don't ignore it. This is the history. Learn from it. And by the way, it just might help raise the boats in Sacramento.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Well, Sonya Bradley, I am so pleased that you're here, and I I will ask, and I hope the answer is yes, that you'd be willing to come back again into this space in the not too distant future, and we can actually ask more questions that we have here but weren't able to get to.
I'd be more than happy to, of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.